I wanted to say good evening all, but I didn't want to make you feel a bit more tired, so I'll say good afternoon, and thanks very much for lending me your attention for the next 15 minutes. I decided not to get a haircut before coming so that I could look a little bit more student-like. Thanks very much for listening to me about my project that I've been doing for the last little while, entitled An Economic Valuation of the Maputaland Coral Reef System. Coral reef valuations and studies have attracted increasing attention to themselves over the last 20 or so years, shifting more away from destructive practices. The previous valuations looked at the costs of coral mining and the costs of destructive fishing practices, and now valuations look more at the total economic values, the positive sides of things like the tourism generation and what the reefs are actually worth in their entirety, not just the costs of affecting them destructively. As a result, there are quite a lot of valuations that have happened all over the world. Valuations such as in Hawaii having their reefs valued at $368 million per year. The reefs of Saipan being a little island nation with fringing reefs around it. Those attract $127 million per year. The coral reefs generate that sort of income for that little island. And similar in Guam, another little island where $61 million are brought in through the coral reefs and the coral reef related tourism and other activities that are associated with it. Interesting one is Floridian reefs are worth $1.5 billion per year, allegedly, which is 8 times the amount that our South African government decided to give to our national carrier the other day without blinking, and yet they complain about sending $500 million to the conservation people here in KZNW. Quite interesting. Valuations are multifaceted in that they look not just at, we don't just look at the fish. We're looking at the human aspects, the direct uses, the indirect uses, consumptive uses, non-consumptive uses, and also the ecosystem services that the reefs provide through habitat and refuge and other sort of values that are intricate and really important, not just at the reefs, but in a greater scale as well, with fish being a highly migratory species, a lot of fish anyway. So I've covered a lot about the importance, and the several valuation techniques that can be used. You have direct market valuations, indirect market valuations, and contingent valuations. I'll touch on some of those a bit later. So my study was based in the Isimangaliso Wetland Park with a specific focus at Sediment Bay, right there with a nice big circle around it. Sediment Bay itself is found within the Umhlabuyelengana municipality, which has a decent population of 160-odd thousand people, but is in quite a trying area in terms of low education and not a lot of employment in the area. So Sediment Bay is quite important there. The tourism that it provides brings in not groundbreaking numbers of jobs, but permanent jobs and long-term jobs. A study that was done a couple of years ago found that the diving tourism brings in 404 permanent jobs and 233 casual labor jobs. Now that's just the diving industry. That's excluding the fishing industry, which brings in a lot of casual jobs over the year, certainly during competitions and holiday periods, as well as informal traders and the like. Those jobs are also not included in that study. The Maputaland Case. The reefs there are the southernmost in the Western Indian Ocean, and they're in very good condition. They're in very good condition for a couple of reasons. One being that they're located in 2 adjoining MPAs that were established in 1979 and 1986. And they also enjoy World Heritage status, which is additional protection that they've had since 1999. But they've got natural barriers that have helped them protect themselves too, being quite far offshore and quite deep. So anybody who wanted to go there needs to get in a boat and paddle across out to the reef, and if they have a big enough breath, they can duck down and maybe shoot a little fish, but they're not allowed to, first of all, and secondly, that takes a lot of effort. So they're naturally protecting themselves in addition to the actual legislative protection that they get. Isimangaliso Wetland Park has nailed a couple of things quite nicely in that they control the number of concessions that happen there. So they have a good a good control over the number of dive charters that operate and the number of fishing concessions that happen there. So they have a good idea of what goes on in terms of numbers and usage of the reefs. And in addition to that, there's set launch sites that happen within the area. So controlling the launching activity and the exploitation of the resources is that maybe not necessarily easy, but it's that much more controlled, and that makes them in a good place at the moment. So the objectives of my study included determining the value of the diving industry, of the fishing industry, and trying to nail down a couple of ecosystem services that could be valued, which is quite a trying and testing process. So we didn't focus on too many because of the extent of the study, and then come about with a comprehensive economic value of the reefs, and hopefully use this in extrapolating to the broader area, heading up into the Western Indian Ocean, Mozambique, hopefully further if we get some funding and projects go ahead. The methods I used were questionnaires, direct questionnaires with individuals. So we'd pop out onto the beach, and it's not what you may imagine, setting up an umbrella and having a couple of signs saying free beer if you answer a questionnaire. We didn't have that sort of budget, and plus I think there would have been a lot of made-up questionnaires. So what we had to do is walk around and approach people and grow a thick skin, which was quite a lot of fun. We got quite a good response, and then I had to sit behind my computer and do a lot of literature reviews, and then some desktop studies as well. Had very good interaction with marine geoscientists and engineers, which helped a lot with the ecosystem services that you hear about a bit later. And then the analysis, I used lovely Stata and some Excel. To give you an idea of how much work we did under the sun, we got over 800 surveys, so that was quite a lot of individual interviews. And those are the numbers of the different spheres we looked at. And now I'll go through each one individually, the diving valuation and the fishing valuation, and then the ecosystem services before I wrap up. So my diving survey objectives. I wanted to find out how much diving contributed to the area through people's expenditure. I also wanted to find out a little bit about what the people liked about the reefs and how they perceived them, because we get quite a few international divers there. Not only that, but divers are generally quite adventurous and want to branch out and dive other countries and other sites. So it was quite cool to find out what they thought of our reefs in comparison to other places. 7 minutes, thank you very much. Number of trips to Sudwana and those sort of details were quite important in finding out how often people returned and how much things were worth. So we can see here, I'll just brush over this quickly. We've got quite diving is a high income sport, and it also is highly male oriented. So I think that's because a lot of guys want to get out of their girlfriend's way and not hear them for a little while, which is always, yeah, that's what I do. The average number of diving years is 7.6, and what the relevance of that is that the higher the diver education or the higher the diver qualification and the more years you've been diving, the more likely, according to other studies, you are to be conservation oriented and take care of reefs. So this shows that we've got quite a older diver population, older. Okay, let's go with older diver qualification, and as such, they are environmentally aware. We look at the values there, and those are the user ratings. Those are what people rated the reefs out of 10, the different reefs, and they're very high. A lot of the people had done international diving, so these are very good results. 8 out of 10 is fantastic in my book. And it also goes to show that perhaps due to the high diving age, people take care of the reefs, and another reason why they're in good condition. Now, these are details that were used to find out how much people are willing to spend how much people spend coming there. So we've got return trips. A lot of divers are return trip people. They go a couple of times a year, and their trip length is not too long, generally just more than a weekend. and their spend on diving is almost half of the amount that they spend on their whole trip. Which brings us to the total value of diving in Sedwana Bay in a typical year, being around 40 million rand, and there's a consumer surplus that's thrown in there as well. That's the travel cost that the people incur in traveling to Sedwana, and it's an effective value that they would be willing to pay extra if it happened, but it doesn't happen, and so it's a consumer surplus value that we throw in there. Now we'll move on to the boat-based fishing. The boat-based fishing, well, we wanted to find out how much the fishing capital that they used is attributable to the coral reefs. Now, people buy their boats and they go to Sedwana Bay, and you could just say, okay, the boat is worth this much, car's worth that much, they spend this much, that's it. But that isn't attributable to the coral reefs. So we found a discount value, finding out how often they launch per year and how often they launch at Sedwana Bay. So that we discounted the value of the capital by that percentage. And then we found out what proportion of their catch is reef reliant, i.e. what fish they catch have a reliance on the coral reefs, and we discounted the value again by that. So this could be an underrepresented value of the fishing industry. However, it's the way I went about it. I'm trying to value the coral reefs, and this is what happened. I'll argue with you guys later. Complications with it is it's within a marine protected area, so they're not allowed to bottom fish over the coral reefs. So it just limited the catch that is directly coral reef oriented. Now we got the fishermen are actually quite high income as well, and they mainly target game fish. And we can see after the depreciation of all the values, that the total value that the fishing industry brings in should be 65 million, but once adjusted for the Sedwana Bay and for the coral reefs, it's down to 4.7 million rand per year. The ecosystem services valuation, I looked at sediment retention and sediment generation of the coral reefs because they lie adjacent to marine canyons, and so they're very important in keeping the sand between the beach and not slumping down into the canyons. The beaches are very important for the diving industry and for everyone to launch their boats, and also for people to come and relax on the beach, as well as protecting Lake Sabaya behind it, which is an important source of fresh water for the area. So I used the replacement cost method, which effectively looks at we took a couple of options. You have to take a range of options, and the option that we found would be dredging and refilling up the bay with sand through dredging, as opposed to creating an artificial reef or another such technique, which would cost a lot more. So in terms of dredging, that's how much it would cost to refill the amount of sediment lost, 1 meter at 1 meter depth of sediment between the reefs and the beach line, the coastline. So in total, it's quite a large number, and in total, when we look at the figures, we get a total value of $54 million per year that Sedwana Bay is worth. This doesn't go very far away from average values when you look at per hectare values. Per hectare values internationally are between 130 and 1.2 million US dollars per year per hectare of reef, and when extrapolating to the area of Sedwana Bay, which is 120 hectares, this falls roughly in the middle. So coral reefs are very important for long-term employment in the area, and they're also a great source of income, and as such, very important for livelihoods. And that's an important part, is we do need to take people into consideration and have them at the heart. Lastly, we do just need to do a bit more comprehensive and robust investigation into the ecosystem services value of the area. Thanks very much.